My 25M, GF, 24F, is utterly helpless and I don't know what the long-term vision of this relationship is. A bit of a mean title, I'll admit, but let me elaborate. I want to start by explaining why I'm with this woman in the first place. GF and I have been together for about a year and a half now. We're both graduate students in different fields at the same university. She is one of the most empathetic people I have ever met. Cares so much for animals and people, always trying to be as conscious of her actions as possible. Even from our first date, I have always felt like I can talk to her about anything. She's hardly ever judgmental about anything, and she honestly seems to love hearing me talk about my interests, and the feeling is mutual. We're both huge nerds and we could talk for hours without getting bored of each other. Her patience seems to be endless. Even when I'm being a total jerk, or making a big deal of something stupid, she is always able to have a rational discussion with me. Whenever we fight, which is extremely rare but less so these days unfortunately, we always are trying to reach an understanding rather than to win. And in the end we always mutually apologize. And make sure we express affection. In short, it's the most communicative and most loving relationship I've ever been in, and I admire her so much as a person. Full stop. The issue, however, is that we seem to be on track for codependency. GF doesn't drive and we live in an area where driving is extremely important, so I'm taking her around and giving her rides constantly so she can meet her basic needs. I have expressed concern over this, and she has a history of car-related trauma, so she refuses to learn to drive. There is no negotiation on this matter, so I simply have to be her caretaker in this regard. GF has no money on account of being a graduate student and not being able to have a job due to not driving. So I usually pay for everything. GF has no friends on account of her severe social anxiety, while I am constantly making new friends and going out to network. She struggles to go anywhere in public by herself without having a panic attack. I try to bring her to social outings, but she frequently says inappropriate things and I feel constant anxiety about vicarious embarrassment. She doesn't enjoy these social outings either, so most of the time I don't bring her along. It's not that she's lonely. She seems to thrive in solitude. But being the one person in her life outside of her family, who are extremely abusive, she is constantly calling and texting me when I need my own space. I'll be panicking, trying to write a midterm paper, and she'll call me 5 times until I pick up to tell me what her cats did. Or she has to call me before making any decision to get my approval, input. She seriously cannot make any decisions on her own. It's tough to set this boundary because when I try to let her just do her thing, she often makes terrible self-destructive choices that honestly baffle me. I have tried to communicate how this bothers me to her, but doing so makes her feel like a burden, and that makes me feel extremely guilty. She recently started therapy, so I'm hoping things will improve and she will try to become more autonomous, but she has repeatedly expressed that she isn't interested in driving, working, or making friends. Her plan thus far seems to be to depend on me her whole life, and I'm not in a field that makes a lot of money. This worries me because I love her so much, and she loves me too, but I often don't feel like her partner. I feel like her surrogate dad. I've repeatedly tried communicating all of this to her, and all it has done is make her feel insecure, but she refuses to do anything for herself all the same. So I'm at a crossroads. I can either leave this loving but flawed relationship or stay and wait for signs of improvement. Any input or thoughts would be appreciated. TLDR: is highly dependent but is the best relationship I've ever had. Makes me responsible for meeting her basic needs. Should I leave?
You have to assume she won't change. Change is always going to be more painful and difficult than the status quo. And even if she does, it will be a slow process and may not be enough for you. So while you are waiting for change that may never happen, you are missing out on other. If you had just met your partner, and you knew all you know now about her, would still you enter into a relationship with her?
Taking care of grown-up, functional people is a nightmare in the long run. I've done this with a few family members and it's incredibly draining after a while. I still have to pay my sister's phone bill and give her money because she refuses to work more than she already doesn't. She's 27 and doesn't drive. I hate this because when something goes wrong for her, she turns to line. If a person is healthy enough to not be eligible for disability, they should work to support themselves. Otherwise they drain everyone. Dealing with people like this, you will always be damned if you do and damned if you don't.
So what's her plan after school? She's going to have a graduate degree, but is she going to work? You're already carrying a lot, and based on what you said, it appears that once school is done, her anxiety, etc. will keep her secluded, so even then she won't have any income. It seems like college and then a graduate degree were the next logical things to keep her from really having to be an adult with adult responsibilities. She's showing no motivation to really do anything: driving, job, any form of social life, etc. If you stay, you will be the sole breadwinner and the giver for absolutely everything. It's also possible that once school is done and she continues on this path, that she will become abundantly more clingy to you. This is going to sound harsh, but do you want to be permanently tied to that?
I think if you either left her or set more boundaries, you'd be doing her a huge favor. Some people can't and won't grow up for themselves unless they are forced to.
Why the heck is she even working on a master's if she has no intention of ever using it for work? Yikes, dude. She doesn't seem to want, or be capable of, being an equal partner. And that is something you are wanting and needing in a significant other. I think it's totally okay to end this relationship over it. Matter of fact, I think if you don't, you're going to really resent her and be very unhappy long term. No one wants to be romantically involved with someone that needs to be taken care of like a child.
You summed up my 12 years of marriage in your foreword. She is codependent as and I feel like I wasted my life on her, and she is missing every opportunity to grow and become independent. I can't save. I feel financially vulnerable. I'm living in constant fear. Sometimes I don't even sleep. Top of all this, and because of all this, I don't love her anymore. I still care for her. Present is your potential future. Op.
That's your answer right there.
Honestly, I'd break up with her. Greater than her plan thus far seems to be to depend on me her whole life. I've actually broke up with someone for this very reason, and based on how you describe your GF's relationship, sounds like my personal nightmare. Even if money wasn't an issue, I don't think I could be happy with someone who doesn't want to strive for something more for themselves outside of being someone's dependent, and I mean that in the most literal sense.
You took the words out of my mouth. I could never be happy depending on someone for things I could do myself to this degree. I value my independence, I value my partner's independence, and he values mine. People seem to enter relationships without even thinking about the fact that their partner could die and they'd be completely helpless. I know that's morbid, but I refuse to be helpless. And I refuse to be with someone who prefers to be helpless.
You say you have great communication, then list all the ways you have terrible communication. UGF has serious problems she is unwilling to seek help for. It's up to you to decide if you want to be a part of that or not.
Love just isn't enough. No one wants to stick around for a relationship with someone they're actually just parenting. You're still young, but 24 is way too old to rely so much on another person for basic needs. She's not a partner, and this is not a partnership. You're a caregiver right now. How long do you want to stay in this situation before enough is enough? It's great that she's starting therapy, but some of the ideas she has aren't fixable. I mean, she's in a master's program but doesn't ever want to work or drive, or even make any friends. I'm not sure therapy will fix that. Assuming this will remain the same, you deserve to go find an equal partner who is capable of taking care of themselves without your help.
Her feeling guilty when you point out her flaws should not shut down the conversation. She's allowed to feel guilty. BC, she should feel guilty. But her feelings do not take priority over addressing the harm she's causing. Rather than retreating for fear of hurting her, you need to push through. Her guilt should be a motivator, not the end of the conversation. She needs to learn how to stop shutting down conversations and making things about her. Why should you comfort her about the guilt she feels for hurting you? Why are her feelings more important than yours? I agree with other commenters that you should end things, not just for your sake, but for hers, so she has a chance to grow. But if you decide to keep trying, you need to remember that the conversation doesn't end when she gets upset. If she is too upset to continue talking, then tell her that you'll give her a bit, 10 to 30 minutes, maybe a few hours, maybe the night, to calm down enough to return to the conversation. She keeps shutting down the conversation because you keep letting her. She's learned that she can avoid responsibility and hard conversations if she gets emotional. And now she needs to learn that that won't fly anymore.
I'm curious. What was your GF's life like before you got together? How was she supporting herself and coping with daily life responsibilities? Where did she live, and with whom?
Presumably she was making her way through life somehow before she met you. Maybe it wasn't ideal or totally functional, but she is probably less helpless than you think. She got into graduate school after all. Something to consider and put your mind at ease if you do decide to end things. This is not on you. It's also okay to not be attracted to someone who has to be forced to step up and act like a true partner. What would happen if OP's car broke down? Or one day lost his job? Or became seriously sick or disabled? What happens when he needs someone to count on? Life throws us all some gnarly curveballs. It's not a matter of if, but when. If you can't trust your partner to have each other's backs 100% when the chips are down, then what's even the point? That's not a partnership.
Dude, it's not codependency, she's actively taking advantage of you, and you're letting GF doesn't drive, and we live in an area where driving is extremely, there is no negotiation on this matter, so I simply have to be her caretaker in this. You don't. What on? No you don't. This is on her, she's an adult, she needs to learn, or find her own way around. And for what it's worth, that is coming from a 33-year-old who only learned to drive at 32. From a woman who had massive driving anxiety from trauma as well, who had a whole kid before learning to drive, and has been in a relationship for 5 years with a man who drives. He always helped me if I needed it, but I never expected him to drive me anywhere. I took Uber, I took public transport, I made my own way around, as not driving was my choice. You are letting her take advantage of you, and it's time for you to stop. Greater than GF has no money on account of being a graduate student and not being able to have a job due to not driving. So I usually pay for is also on her, and more proof that she is taking advantage of you. Stop paying for everything. She needs to get a job, online work exists, public transport and Uber exist, she's being lazy and you're enabling, but being the one person in her life outside of her family, who are extremely abusive. She is constantly calling and texting me when I need my own space. I'll be panicking, trying to write a midterm paper, and she'll call me 5 times until I pick up to tell me what her cat's is totally unacceptable behavior. She doesn't care about your emotional needs the way you claim she does, if she does this to you, and makes you her single support person for everything. Greater than she seriously cannot make any decisions on her own. It's tough to set this boundary because when I try to let her just do her thing, she often makes terrible self-destructive choices that honestly baffle. Have to let her. She's doing this to manipulate you into taking the decision away from her so she can continue to coast. Let her. Greater than I often don't feel like her cause you're not. I don't know if I'd call you her surrogate dad, but partnerships are between two equals, where being together is a benefit to each. Where they help each other, where they support and lift each other up, where they are an added benefit to their lives. She just uses and manipulates you, dude. The only thing you could possibly be getting out of this relationship is good conversation and possibly no wonder you're unhappy. I can't see this changing TBH, but there is no chance this is the best relationship you will ever have. She just uses you.